Welcome back to Apollo City Comics, your anything and everything comic book podcast. I'm Brandon Blocksdorf.
And I'm Alex Betts.
And, dude, T'Challa finally calmed down. So before
Really?
this episode, I'd been battling T'Challa for about 15 minutes, trying to stop biting my cord. And you know what? He's just purring and holding me now. I think we're in a good spot to start the show.
Hey, man, that's what it's about.
As long as we can do it. Dude, we're continuing a pretty epic series that apparently I've owned for years and never read, and it's your favorite series. So what a coincidence!
It is.
But man, so much has happened in the last few weeks. I can't even explain it. We're prepping for surveys are out for the punk rock anthology. Keep an eye out for that. That's the first foremost thing for all of our listeners, because most of you guys who listen just back that anthology. So got to throw that out there. But we've been working towards it, and it's really crazy, really exhausting, which we depend on coffee and a comic for our fresh cup of coffee. God damn it, T'Challa. He already started. This is war.
That's why you said it. That and then he was like, okay, I hear you. I gotta be a menace now, actually.
That was a fierce one.
Not happens.
Yeah, it really messed up that segment. But you know what? The only way I could survive fighting T'Challa all day is with a nice cup of coffee that I get from Coffee and Comic over at coffeeandcomic.com, where you can set up your awesome pull list and hit up Frank and get all the badass variants and all that type of stuff. And you know what? We're probably going to be putting the punk rock anthology in his store as well. So I think that'd be a pretty awesome place for you to get a cup of coffee, support Frank's small business, and get a copy of our book. So you know what? Keep an eye out for updates on that as well.
That just sounds like a row of wins, if you ask me.
Yes. How do you go wrong with that?
Everything great is there. Yeah, that's amazing. But alongside that, we also, of course, have our Patreon that you should definitely check out if you haven't already. We've got 4 different tiers on there. The first one is just $1. It's just if you love the show, you want to support. But along with that, you'll get access to our book club episodes, which we do have our next one planned for the next part of Cavalier and Clay. So that's super exciting. But so you get book club episodes with the first tier. Second tier, you get our late night episodes, which again, we have a handful of those planned now. We've got a bunch of different topic ideas and stuff, so they're going to be super fun. And so that's with the second tier. And of course, for every tier up, you get everything that came before. So of course, you get your book club episodes again. And then for the third tier, you're coming in and I just totally train wrecked this, because I know our last tier is the editor one, and we have the book club episodes and the late night episodes, and then
this is the one where you get our books early, something like that.
Yes, you're correct. Yeah. I for some reason was lumping that in with the editor one, but you're right.
Patreon members should actually be getting a copy of the punk rock anthology in the next week or so, delivered to their Patreon under that tier. So they get the first digital copy along with the people who back the digital book, because we don't want to send out the digital book to backers until we mail out the physical book, so they arrive simultaneously and everyone gets it at once. But Patreon members get that a week early, so it's super cool.
Hell yeah. So definitely. So yeah, that's the third tier. You get our books digitally early, which is awesome. So yeah, and then the fourth tier is you can have us edit your comic, your project. If you have a project you're working on and you need an editor or just want a second, more people on it, there's our last tier, our fourth tier. Go to it. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, definitely check out our Patreon if you haven't already. And of course, also they all come with access to our Discord, which is pretty awesome. We're trying to get that community growing and active. So be sure to check that out. And yeah, that's the Patreon.
Yeah, and as Apollo City Comics is now podcast and publishing, there's going to be a lot of cool treats coming your way inside the Patreon newsletter and everything. A lot of cool artwork, a lot of cool, book updates on various projects. So we'll keep you guys posted on all that and be announcing stuff on the Patreon probably first before anywhere else, as people, continue to join our little imprint. Man, that's a lot of information. Typically,
know, right?
it's so much to go through now at this point, and we're just
we got a whole housekeeping segment up front.
And you know what? Check out our previous episode, which was a San Diego panel that I did.
Yes.
I did 2 of them, and this is one that we were able to get the audio and video from. But you can check it out. Mark Bernal is on there, for the owner of Lesser Known Comics, and we have Gabe from Digital Lizard of Doom.
Love Gabe.
Yeah, we have just such a fantastic group of people on that. Our friend Andy is there on the panel with us. It was just Max Flowers, and then Max. You guys should check out Max's stuff. T'Challa. T'Challa's fighting my mic now, man.
Yeah, I saw. I was like, what happened there? Did you?
I think his Instagram's like Game Boy camera.
That sounds right.
Or the guy with the Game Boy camera.
Yeah.
But just super cool stuff, and he set up that panel for us. And it was just such a really cool thing. So that took place in San Diego. We never really touched base on San Diego. It was just such a blur when I got back and everything.
Yeah, no, we
so
literally were planning on it, and then it just never happened. And now it's been like 2 weeks, and I'm like, I just kind of know what happened now, and like, it's okay.
yeah. I feel like the stories have been shared. I still got to make a post at some point, and I just haven't even done that. It's been a lot of catching up. Lots going on though. I was just on the Source Pages 100th episode, and I was just trying to like explain like, oh man, like I'm trying to catch up on everything, and I haven't been promoting too many of the Apollo episodes lately, but like just so much is going on in the background with this publishing imprint. A lot of our focus has come to like reorganizing and planning and setting up things and, templates and contracts and stuff like that. And it's just been way more work. And
it's been way more like what you would consider not fun work, but like it's been fun. I think.
Yeah, it's been
like,
great.
It's been awesome.
Awesome. Yeah,
it's just a lot of
down.
behind the scenes stuff. Like I posted, here's a sneak peek of Patreon content. I posted on the Patreon, like the last update. I was like, there's been so many things like that we've been working on. That's a lot of like things that people can't see yet, but very soon, so many things are going to start like coming out, and you're going to be like being able to see the results of all the prep and organization and planning and like everything else we've been doing, which is super exciting.
Yeah, it's been, all this stuff that we're doing that typically went towards like podcast planning and research for the books and stuff like that is now just filled with creator meetings and, us making sure that we're, handling stuff correctly, figuring out, what we did with the punk rock anthology and how we could already make it better for Cybersync and that Kickstarter and for Kai Brown's Shadow anthology, and while working on our own books. It's super rewarding, and all of this will be revealed really soon. It just sounds like a lot of talk kind of in the background, and we have some other creators that we're now talking about bringing on that were very unexpected, 2 other totally out of nowhere books. So we're almost like at 14 titles that we're kind of juggling just like out of the launch, and that's a small little preview, like update, I guess, out of nowhere on the publishing side. Yeah,
it's wild. It's been wild. It's so cool. And
we're still trying to do stuff like the Instagram lives. We just had Kevin Zoldan on a week or so ago, and by the time this comes out, I figure Fugitive Poems comics should be out on our Instagram live as well. So keep an eye out for our creator talks on lives. We're kind of shifting all of our creator interviews to Instagram lives, namely just to be more accessible and also just kind of get the attention to the Kickstarters or whatever they're promoting a lot sooner than us having to edit and then promote and put out. That way we can just keep on sharing and giving that information over and over. So the creator talks have been like a really fun thing to do, and I think it's helping them a little bit more with followers and getting some attention their way.
Yeah, I like that it's a direct line to that creator, like from us, as opposed to like, yeah, it's cool to have them on a podcast episode on whatever, but then the follow through, like going from YouTube or Spotify or whatever it is to like clicking the link to get to that creator's profile, I feel like is way like you're just adding another step. Whereas like on Instagram, like if you're already on Instagram, it's like, oh, I see them right there. I can just click this button and like now I'm following them. So yeah, I think that's definitely been really good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on. We're really excited for it, and everything's about to like kickstart, into another gear as we start launching like our weekly newsletter on our Patreon and all sorts of updates. We have like artwork ready for so many books, and we're gonna be sharing. Like, I just got a text from Evan just a few minutes ago.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah. He just sent me a new concept art we're doing a book called The High Adventures of Weed Wizard and Bong Boy together. And
it's awesome. Can confirm.
Been bouncing stuff around, and he just sent me concept art for the dub, which I just adore. I just can't believe that that's happening. So yeah, just Patreon members will get access to this probably before anyone else, and that's the fun part about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just got an idea. Oh, cool. No, super exciting stuff. It's really wild. It's funny. I remember this whole like front half section has just turned into talk about the imprint. But I remember talking like not that long ago about like, you know, plans for the imprint or whatever, and now we have the like you were just saying, the amount of titles and like books that we're talking about and like doing is just so crazy to think about, and it's so exciting.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, stuff on the punk anthology, you know, there was a lot of stuff that I learned that, you know, I wish I did better and was more adamant about and, you know, followed up on. But I think everything just shifted so fast, and it turned into like, it went from like one thing and it sprouted this whole garden. Like I was trying to, you know, plant a tomato and I got like a field of stuff. And so that's kind of wild. And yeah, honestly, we just got the posters in for the Kickstarter. Milo and Max sent those over, and so we'll be getting the books in. They're at, you know, our publishers, Lesser Known Comics' place right now. I'm just gonna pick them up next week and then start prepping the books and sending them out the following week. So you guys all have updates on that. And yeah, that merch, the posters too. And it'll all be worth it, guys. Like,
those are so cool.
It's wild. If you guys were at San Diego, you got to see a really cool variant of the poster there, and we had the San Diego variant. So a couple people already have the book in hand in that case as well. So that's kind of wild and cool stuff. We'll actually be announcing if we have extra San Diego books and of the Jade Lauder variant once we get inventory levels post shipping.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, so exciting, man.
Yeah, super cool, super great. But and you know, get ready for the CyberSync stuff. We're actually sending out announcements on who made it. And
those are all. By the time this goes up, everyone has been that actually, because that's the next thing. I'll be making a post on Instagram before this goes live, so that'll be talking about how like everyone has been responded to. Everyone who submitted to the book now knows, and so the pre-launch is now like. By the time this goes up, we'll be under the review process for the pre-launch page to go up. So that's super exciting. So definitely go check that out, because there'll be links to that in the show notes and everything. So yeah, I'm incredibly excited with how that book is coming together, and yeah, I can't wait.
Nice. Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And the design behind that right now is just insane. So it's gonna be a beautiful book. Kai Brown's Shadow Anthology is accepting submissions right now. If you guys have any questions on the prompt or anything, I would recommend seeing our post, read the prompt, read the rules, read what we're looking for, and then, you know, ask any questions past that or just explain things for more clarity. And we have submissions open until like October 31st. So there's plenty of time to work on a project and like get stuff going. To give us some good stuff. And there's no need to rush a submission, you know, just kick ass and do your best and go from there.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Cool. Well, talking about Wicked and Divine.
Yes.
Wickdev. Volume 2.
Which also, okay, dude, I'm sorry. I'm going to call you out on air now.
I always fuck it up.
You spell it wrong every single time in our text, and I've spelled it correctly like 20 times at this point. And every time I spell it correctly, I'm just praying that you catch on and you start spelling it right, and you don't. And I'm like, is he doing it to spite me at this point? Because this is literally my favorite comic. Like, this dude is just.
It's supposed to. I put EV every time because I think
you spell Wick too wrong. You put a K instead of the C. It's just completely.
I thought the K was cooler. Like,
oh my god, Yeah, so this guy this is just butchers spelling Wickdiv in our chats every time.
You spell it WICDIV.
Yeah,
okay.
And it's just
I
one
spell
word.
it WIK
space DEV. It's just completely Wickdev.
Wickdev.
It's just not even. Anyways, yeah. So we're talking about The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 2, issues 6 through 11, which I'm very excited about. Sorry, I just kind of took that over, but I mean, like, I love this book a lot. We talked about it in the first one, and I was very excited to get to this volume because the end of it is particularly wild, and I think that overall it does a good job. We talked about this very briefly the other day before you had finished the volume, but this book does a great job at expanding the world in a very organic way and in very interesting ways, I think. And so, yeah, I was very, very hyped to get to this. And we've been talking about it and wanting to kind of attempt to streamline the show a little bit and how we cover the comics. And so instead of going through everything that happens in all the issues, I was thinking I was going to ask you just generally like your overall thoughts on the volume, and then I have some notes and like talking points that I definitely wanted to hit for each issue, but like I figured we can do that instead of just going through like, you know, every single thing beat by beat.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think this was like an interesting volume. It was like, you know, the first one we talked about how it just like launches you into the story. Like it just, you're there and you just pick up and you start running, basically. I feel
Yeah.
like you don't stop running once you start this series. Like,
Yeah, no, it
when you
doesn't.
pick up this volume, this is more of how the first volume gave us a lot of characters and it gave us like a quick story and like an arc in a sense. I
Yeah.
feel like this second volume was more just like this is going to be setting up a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah,
And I
this
feel
arc is like pure setup essentially.
yeah, I feel like the next fucking T'Challa dude. I swear to God. Like,
Yeah, I
there's
can.
no-
I mean, I can see him, but I can also hear him clicking around on you. Like,
For those not watching, T'Challa just hangs out and just destroys stuff while I, you know, podcast and do stuff. Watch any of our live videos and you'll see him pop up. But anyways, this is just like, you know, we're introduced to some cool characters. Not only do you get like Prince, but you get My Chemical Romance, and I don't know what other comic has ever done that in the history of anything. So how amazingly perfect in every way. But you also, you're kind of just like moving forward. I'm trying to think of another series that does this, but kind of utilizing that, you know, sophomore, you know, second volume to like really spring ahead, knowing that like, okay, we have an audience that got us through the first volume. And now that we have that audience, I think they'll be captivated enough to see us like spring into something even crazier. And I'm really excited to see where volume 3 comes next, because everything I feel is like just changed on the entire game. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, like where
yeah,
you just go into the next season and then like a lot of stuff has shifted, and then
Yeah.
now you're just like seeing the results of like, okay, this is where we landed. And now
it's
we're
wild.
gonna,
I feel like we should say at the top, like, spoiler warning for the whole volume. But like, it's wild because they do the same thing at the end of this volume, right? Like,
Yeah.
they kill presumably the main character. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all like Laura from the start is our POV and like entry character, of course. But like Lucifer very much seems like she's going to be the main god character that we're with. And like she gets killed at the end of that arc. And then in this arc, we get, and like we're following Laura, and she ends up getting everything that she wanted, you know, and which I have a lot of things I don't want to talk about with that. But specifically, like with the end, you know, it gets to the end and then we see her killed. And so it's like they do the same thing. And it just has you like, okay, well, this was the last thing I expected. Like, I didn't expect it the first time, and I definitely didn't expect it this time with what I've established and connected to as like, this is my character. This is the audience, like, insert character. And so, yeah, it's a very bold thing to do. And I think those final couple pages are also just gorgeous. Like, they're so good.
Yeah, dude. The coloring in this book the palette they use. Those pinks and those very similar to our color palette, you know what I mean, going on here, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's like really enchanting, and it kind of works for that like majestic I mean, that's what Apollo City was just like ripping off Jack Kirby's Lord of Light stuff. So that godliness type of uniqueness in those some sort of like retro blacklight colors almost. That I love it. I love that, like what they're doing with it.
It's wild. Honestly, the most impressive thing that I think, if I'm going to toot my own horn, I did in those like articles where I covered an issue of this, like per article, was finding new ways to say that Jamie McKelvey and Matthew Wilson are just fantastic artists. Like, because I literally had a paragraph each time, you know, where I was talking about the art, and I was like, okay, 27 or like 28 issues deep, being like, all right, what's a new way that I could say that this art just rips? Because it's just so good consistently throughout. Like, it's just amazing.
We should have those all linked below too, if you guys.
Yes, yeah, I'll start putting all those in the show notes up until we get to issue 28, because I unfortunately did not finish the project, but that's okay. Maybe I'll do that someday. I'll go back and
it'll be a
and do
Patreon
that.
thing. We'll just wrap it up there.
That'd be cool. But yeah, so I'll link those. But yeah, just the art throughout, like McKelvey is so good at the expressions and the moment to moment expressions and the character design. Like they all just look stunning. Like the entire Pantheon is just one phenomenal design after another, and they just consistently look great throughout the book. And then, as you were saying, the display of their powers and how they all look, McKelvey's general art with that, and then Wilson's colors just take it to a whole like other level. It's just it's consistently just like dazzling and ethereal and like everything you can imagine. It's one of those things where I feel like there's a lot of comic books that, and this is going to sound like a knock, but it's not. There's a lot of comic books that I feel like you could show to like someone who doesn't read comic books and they'll be turned off by the art, you know? Like I like pretty much any type of like art that you can find in a comic, even stuff that it's like maybe not my favorite, but I'm like, okay, I can see what they're doing and appreciate, you know, like, but a lot of people like, they'll be like, oh, would prefer the house style or whatever. But I feel like you can show the pages of this book to anyone and they'll be like, yeah, that's gorgeous art, you know? Like,
it kind of like, you know, a lot of parts of it really do give me like a simplified like Sandman vibe. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much Sandman you've read, but
a little bit.
Yeah, there's some parts of it where it's just like, man, that's where like some of the shots and the way they utilize characters, like it feels very like Sandman, like what that direction was introducing and giving comic books at the time. And I love that. I love that continuation. This would have been like a Vertigo book, I feel, for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's also, hold on, which issue was that? Okay, so that's issue 8. Yeah, they're just. It's also the art has such an interesting, like, it feels modern too, and I don't know how to describe that better, but like it just, and I feel like it fits with the whole like putting, you know, the idea of ancient gods in our modern times and like how they come out with that and what that results in.
You know, something we're also discovering that is vital in a book, and what really we're both very attracted to in books and looking at credits now, kind of trying to pay attention to, is the designer credit. The designer who does, like, you know, the Jonathan Hickman stuff and things like that are just extraordinary. And that's what makes WicDev like so fucking cool. Like those in-between pages and how the book is laid out and the fonts and like what they're using for a lot of it. I mean, fonts like on the outside and everything, not clean.
Also,
fonts, but.
like Cal's lettering for each of the gods, the different bubbles are all so good.
Fucking, like who's the dudes in the green? What issue is it? The second issue somewhere. They have the Tron guys.
Oh, Woden. Yeah, dude. His lettering is sick. Anana's lettering also matches him perfectly. Yeah,
the purple. Dude, but when it's doing the 1, 2, 3, 4, that inverted like coloring, how it's a black.
Oh, the whole balloon. Rave sequence.
Yeah, the rave sequence. Dude,
that whole issue is so good. Issue 8. Yeah,
like just playing a rave in a book. I felt also, like I've been to a few raves.
Did you
feeling that emotion and that beat and like that weird like blankness between stuff sometimes, like and catching stuff? Oh man.
So one of my favorite things about the rave issue is, I don't know if you noticed it, but so they're double page spreads a lot of the time. I'm holding up my hardcover if someone's watching on video.
That same page right now.
Yeah. So like I don't know if you noticed that it can be read either way. You can read it. I was doing that. Yeah, you can read it like all the way across each top row, or you can read like the page and the page, like go row by row, or you can do page by page, and like it still can be read that way, which is wild.
Insane.
And like the fact that it like plays into the experience of the thing, like, is just so cool. It's such a genius technique, and yeah, it's absurd, like how good that is.
That was one of my favorite. Honestly, and I was even telling you, I was like, I think I need to go back and read the third issue in this book. I guess it's issue 8.
Yeah,
and I was like, it's just like so much. It's because it's like a party. It's like trying to be like, okay, I just read a party issue, and then it's like trying to remember a party you just went to. You're like, but that just makes sense. Like, I need to like try to rethink about it and relive it almost to like make it coherent.
Also, dude, I can't emphasize enough how much important stuff like and character work was happening and like happens in this issue too. Like these conversations, there's so much going on here and the fact that it's blended and happens just so organically and like naturally in the dialogue and in the setting it's so great. I love it. And yeah, the whole effect of her like fading back out of the party and like even the drop in the middle of it too, and just it's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, let me see. What was the other thing that I just loved about it? Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to say it. This is totally an homage to The Crow. That's a total The Crow page, 100%.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah. The way his like makeup and tear falls during that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
Oh, that
Those
part
are
was
my
so
favorites.
rough. She's like, "Oh no, I know something's wrong," because Cassandra gets elevated to godhood,
Yeah.
which is also sick. I love her performance, and the like black and white starkness there is so good.
Dude, David Blake showing up.
Yeah. So yeah, did you have like besides just like pointing out like cool moments and stuff? Did you have any more like specific thoughts on the overall thing, or do you want to like kind of because I there was a couple of talking points for each that I kind of wanted to get your
Yeah,
thoughts
run
on.
through your talking points.
Okay, so for the sixth issue, so the first one of this volume, I definitely, the aftermath of trauma is a big staple here. Like, Laura's been through some severe events since the series started, and she, like, wanted a lot of fame, and wanted this celebrity status. And she's gotten it, not in the way that she imagined, but she does have it, but, like, it's clearly not helped at all. She's very much not happy and like not doing okay. I love the conversation that she doesn't have with her mom, like the one where it goes and the background drops out and it's just the white page and it's her like yelling at the reader essentially and like talking about the stuff that's happened. That's really, interesting. And so I like that issue is exploring that really and is like setting up. I mean, even the introduction pages, like I love the Lucifer died for our sins shirts. I think those
Yeah.
are sick. But
Yeah.
then like her being like, that's awesome. But then also like the flashback panels of her, seeing Lucifer die and just still not being okay with that, obviously. So yeah, that was the main thing from issue 6. Issue 7, this one like continues to like hone in on her wanting that fame and reality versus it not helping at all. And then it also like really focuses on the toxic side of fandom. And like this is the one where we get a lot more of the exploration of kind of the like how the gods work in lore and like in universe. And it also is one of the things that I feel like I didn't think about going into the series beforehand, but how smart the premise is as far as the like 90 years thing, because it makes it to where like 90 years prior, they didn't really have the technology to like accurately report on this stuff. And so like they have stories, right? And so this makes it like the first time that we're like going to witness it. And so the fact that they make it this like Bigfoot essentially type, like that's it, that's what this like panel like feels like almost. It's like they're talking about, is it the Bigfoot or the Yeti or whatever, like is this even gonna happen, like because up until then they just have like stories and they're like, oh well, like this dude says that he talked to this person that like was involved with that,
Yeah.
and like it's just crazy how smart that premise is whenever you like stop and think about it a little bit. Because that's something that at least myself, like I was saying, like I never thought about going into the series, but then it just is able to like work in so seamlessly into the narrative flow there, and like gives you a really interesting angle as far as like exploring it, because they're then able to use that to tie into like who the shooters were and like that kind of stuff and how that whole thing can go. And like it also then you get the spirals of like the commentary on like toxic celebrity worship and toxic fandom, and
That's
like
what I loved about it too. Like
Yeah.
in that aspect, that was a really entertaining aspect of it. Like just, and it would make sense like comparing it to a god, but I mean, it's so relevant that
well, like they literalize celebrity worship, right? Like the gods become celebrities in this. It's not a subtle thing, but it's also just works perfectly. Like, yeah, and it's such like brilliant commentary on it. And they also like note multiple times that the word fan is like derived from fanatic. Like they
Yeah.
definitely like hammer that home, and it's like, oh damn, like, but yeah, it's just it's a really they do a great job on that, and that's one of the things I love that they explore there. And I think they do. It's also just so funny seeing that in the prism of they go to a comic convention or like a fan convention, it's like, and so of course everyone reading this book like knows about that, right? And so it's a thing that you can instantly be like, oh okay, like I can put myself here and definitely know what this situation is.
I love like the little maps they give for all of this too. Like
Oh.
that type of like design work is freaking
Yeah, like the
extraordinary,
maps,
dude.
yeah, that and the like Laura's bedroom one too,
Yeah,
where you get the
in
like
first
out of
issue.
yeah perspective one. Oh, it's so sick. But yeah, so that's the seventh one. For issue 8, this is the, like we were talking about, the rave issue. So again, I like this one because it really drives home the idea that all the gods can do for mortals in the context of this story is make their lives better through their performances and give them something to remember. Like Dionysus, I haven't tried to say that in forever, but he's the epitome of this idea. Like he sacrifices the solace of his own mind to give people like bliss for a night. Even if they don't remember it, they'll remember being happy, and like that's the point. And so I really like the idea that this issue is just the like, this is what they can do, and this is what, at least like he feels like this is the point that they like have, and I think that's really, really interesting.
Dude, nailed it.
It's crazy. It's so wild. It's I love the panel whenever he like goes to his regular eyes and they're just like the most bloodshot thing you've ever seen.
Yes, dude, that's one of my favorite parts in this. I was looking for that exact thing right now to bring that up.
It's such good character stuff because he's like, and it's such a subtle thing, and it happens in like an instant, and it's because it's built on the weight of everything and all the context that you just had, right? You've seen him be this like super like chill, like, oh, this is the coolest dude I've ever met, and he's throwing the best party you could possibly imagine for all of these people, right? It's just like bliss. And then he's like, yeah, like I haven't been alone in my head for like however long he says, and like I don't sleep. And he just like shows his real eyes, and you're like, oh my God, like that's ridiculous. But he's like, no, this is like what I should be doing. And his reason for doing it is so cool. You're like, oh man, you are the best dude.
Yeah, it like, I don't know, it makes you feel like, man, this guy's just doing this for us, you know? He's throwing the party just for us. He's killing himself.
Like, I love that reading of him being like, okay, well, this is how I can positively give back with, you know, what I've been given. Which is really cool because there's a lot of them that have very different readings of that as we of what they can do with their powers as we see subsequently. So yeah, this one, which leads into the next issue, issue 9, which the biggest takeaway that I get from this one is like the mental toll that knowing about your impending death must have, like knowing you're going to die in less than 2 years, right? And like we all know that we're going to die, but we don't know the exact like finite amount of time that we have, and so we definitely see like how much that's messing with Minerva, especially, which like that whole situation is so fucked. Like the kid, her being like, okay, I'm 12 years old and like I've now just been given a death sentence, and seeing how she's not coping with that is, I think, really, it's important that they stress that, and like how you can possibly be okay with that. And then it even gets like, I like that you see it through her, and the most obvious like reaction to it is like, oh, I'm just having breakdowns constantly. And then you see Baphomet, who then is like, okay, he's given it kind of out, and it's like, all right, well, I'm going to fight this as much as I possibly can. Then like, I like, fuck this. I hate that I'm in this situation. Like this sucks, and everyone else can pay. Like if I can get better out of this, you know, which I think it's really smart to do that kind of like contrast there. But yeah, I can't imagine, dude, like getting, I mean, I think it's also a super prescient is just like always relevant thing in the fact that like, I mean, people who are diagnosed with terminal illnesses like have to deal with that, you know, like,
yeah,
that just is something that does happen to people. Like they're like, hey, you have like, we estimate this much time, and just I can't imagine the mental toll like that would take.
Dude, yeah, that's like making, you know, grounding a god in a sense, and making him like feel like humanity and mortal in a, you know, in a deep way.
It's the way that they do it is so wild because they can. I like the way that they talk about how they kind of are and kind of aren't the people that they were before the transformation. Like, you know, they'll talk about like how they remember it or whatever, but like that is what grounds them, because they're like, oh, well, I've been experiencing this whole life, and like you're telling me that I'm about to die, like. I was given the powers of a god, but this sucks. Like, yeah, it's wild.
It's kind of interesting hearing that in this issue, and then also seeing like the birth of another god, like the creation and like, you know, Cassandra transforming and everything.
Yeah,
that's like one of those really cool like storytelling things where you're just giving like, you know, you're taking and giving at the same time within that story. And it's such a cool way to go from Baphomet's struggle into Cassandra's new like abilities and whatnot. And just like the transformation in general, dude. What a cool panel. 2-page spread.
Those are the first time we see the transformation, right?
Yeah.
Is her. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, no, those spreads are so sick. I love them a lot, and it's just such a good, like, those are just iconic lines. And yeah, what did you think about it being like her? I love that it's the like non-believer, is the like god of fate is crazy.
I mean, her being like the reporter and like stuff like that, like, all of that, it's kind of a good blend of everything to like, I mean, that's what Kieran like kills it at, is his characters. Yeah. Every one of his stories, they're really dense. I mean, his Eternal series was like very similar to something like this. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's dealing with gods. He was basically already writing Eternals with stuff like this.
Yeah. But it's just like revamping or like rearranging or organizing a mythology, like.
And he's such like a big, I think it's like Warhammer or something like that. One of those like intense role playing games where you're doing strategy and like also big D&D player and everything. I feel like,
I mean, yeah, I need to read Die still.
Oh, same here. I have volume 1.
Same. I have maybe volume 2 also, and I just haven't gotten into it yet.
We'll do it soon.
We'll do it for the for the show.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, that's what I mean. His ability to like understand gods is like on Neil. I want to hear him and Neil Gaiman talk about gods.
That'd be such a good conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love that. I love her. And her, I mean, it makes sense too whenever you're reading it and you're like, oh, okay. But it also, like, it's working on so many other levels because also at this point in the story, you think that she's just taken the last god slot, right? Like, you're like, oh, well, it's not going to be Laura, who at this point also through these issues has been, consistently clicking her fingers and trying to recreate the flame that she saw at the end because she's like,
it's doing. Because she does it once in this, like, volume, out of nowhere before she starts doing the online, like, Twitter stuff. But then that's like her obsession. It's just like knowing that she has it, but she doesn't know how to like bring it. And then she questions her abilities to have it at that point.
Yeah. So yeah, all that stuff is great. And then issue 10 comes in and like, this is where we get, like Laura talking through her stuff, like, and like helps her a little bit, and she like is kind of starting to get reoriented and like deal with her situation, which is like good, but then that'll get upended pretty soon. But I really do love when Cassandra, because I butcher that pronunciation, URDR. Urder.
Yeah, Urder. I was trying to say that in my head a lot too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Urder, but she speaks directly on the notion that like nothing has any meaning, and that like death is endless, and that even in despair they have each other, which is what matters, and like that the gods are there to like give people an experience, and what people choose to do with themselves after that is up to them. I really like that a lot. But then you get that, which is like cool, and then also her like not being happy because she feels like people don't really like get it whenever she's saying that. But then you get the complete flip side of Baphomet, who's like, all right, well, I'm gonna be like, I can take these people out and live for a little bit longer then, so I'm gonna do that number, which is just not the best. And like his conversation with Morrigan is really telling, and like confrontation with her. I like that like they're arguing about it, and he's just like, no, like this is the way to go. So yeah, that's great. And then,
dude, but like this issue has one of my favorite pages ever too. During this attack, oh man, this is too some good. Like manga influenced paneling, like black and white stuff, dude. This is insane.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. Performing is just the best thing. I love how Baphomet has to get his like bad, like the devil on his shoulder to like talk himself up to like doing stuff. Yeah. He's like, he needs his own personal like demon hype man, which is just so funny. And so yeah, that leads into issue 11, which is a pretty important and big issue. I think the biggest like theme in this issue that like hits me the most comes from Inanna's conversation with Baphomet after Baphomet like has started to attack him and is trying to kill him. Yeah. And he's like, you're trying to kill me to get like extend your life, talking about the Prometheus Gambit, but like for that it can apparently work for death gods. And he's like, it won't change anything. And Buffett's like, no, like, fuck you, yeah, it will. And he's like, no, you're not, like, listening. Like, you can have more time, but that doesn't mean your quality of life is going to be any better.
Yeah.
Like, you're still just fucking miserable. Like,
Yeah.
like, being miserable longer doesn't fix that. And which I love. Like, he's just won in that moment. Like, dude's literally facing down death, and he's like, "Oh, well, it sucks to be you, bro." Like,
yeah, exactly,
he's like,
dude.
enjoy those 2 extra years of feeling like shit. Which and also that whole fight is just amazing. Like we were talking about earlier, the powers are just. I love when he like crucifies him, bro. Come on,
Prince versus Danzig. You know what I mean? Like, it's the coolest fucking thing you could do. Yeah, it's. Dude, that was honestly one of my favorite parts. Is that whole realization? Is just like, dude, you're not even enjoying life. Like, you're just like, you're gonna be miserable unless you figure this out. I hope you realize that.
It's like just the through line that you need to figure out the life that you want to lead and do that, and that's the way to solve the problem. Not to be like, well, I want to live longer, because like that doesn't matter if you're still just having the worst time ever. So yeah, that's like one of the threads in this issue. The other one though comes from Laura, who at the beginning of the issue was walking home, and she has decided after her like breakdown last issue, being like, I'm not, because whenever she sees Cassandra has become Erder, she's like, oh, you're the 12th god, it's not going to be me, which is what leads to her kind of like accepting that things are going to be okay. And then she's like, no, I'm still going to like try to click my fingers and see if, this can happen. And she like walks home and finds Ananke. And then that leads to their conversation and her becoming a god. So she's Persephone, which I love. And then she's promptly murdered. So what do you... So I would say the reading here, as far as like any themes, is definitely the like pretty obvious of like, be careful what you wish for. Like this is like all she's been asking for the entire series, and she gets it, and then immediately, gets her head blown off. So... not exactly being like subtle there, but yeah, what do you think about this cliffhanger?
Before I answer that, Ananke, I just realized, reminds me of the villain in Metalocalypse. I don't know if you remember or have ever saw Metalocalypse.
I've seen like an episode or two like 10 years ago.
dude, yeah. It just like, honestly, we'll Google it. Maybe we'll post up a picture right now if someone's watching this, and you'll see it. Fucking wild. But you know what? Dude, her getting her head blown off was like, there's a lot of endings you could kind of predict, you know what I mean? Like, and see coming. But this was one of them where you're just like, oh, fuck, now we're going to carry on to her being a god and how that's going to impact everyone and blah, blah, blah. And just cutting her off like that, like, I'm like, is she going to come back? She has to come back, right? Like,
I don't know. Is she going to come back? But it's crazy because you also, like, did you even expect her to become a god? Like, did you think she was still going to become a god?
I didn't think she was going to become a god. I thought she was going to be more like inherently becoming Lucifer, like through that. Yeah, that's what I was kind of expecting from it, is her just like, that's going to be the next like step for that, or like having a mixture of maybe uniqueness at that point of like her godness or god powers, like not properly getting them and getting them like maybe passed on, and that did something different with her. But I didn't ever expect her to actually get like given a god.
Yeah, like she goes through the transfer. Like we get one, we get Cassandra, and then the next issue we get another one, which is also like wild.
It's one of those moves where like you do it a second time because they don't expect you to do it again that soon. You know what I mean? Yeah. Same thing with the ending, like the Volume 2 ending the same way Volume 1 ended. Yeah,
this ending just like doubles up on doing things this immediately, like doing things again.
This whole issue, this whole second volume doubles up on everything, and it's not like a lack of like originality or laziness. It's you didn't see that coming. You didn't expect that to happen. Yeah. And so that's where I think this entire, like, it was a good wrap up to the second one. It was a good ending because it's kind of been doing that the entire issue. The entire volume was like kind of repeating kind of some like events. And so, like, history repeating itself, kind of like what happens with these gods. History is constantly repeating itself. So this is, again, that whole entire aspect right there, too.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, working on a lot and doing a lot. And, yeah, I don't want to say too much. It just gets so much more batshit from here.
I'm hyped. We'll be doing Volume 3 in the next couple weeks, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. This was a great volume. This was a good, like, Like it's a cliffhanger that's going to leave you hooked, and that's what you need, especially at the end of a volume. A volume ending is like the biggest kind of cliffhanger you need. To have people be like really curious about what's coming next. When you kind of close a story too shut sometimes, and then a second volume comes out, it kind of feels like, oh, do I have to adapt to this? New
Yeah,
thing?
well, and because then you also get like, oh, well, the first one had a pretty like solid ending. I can get the second one later.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
opposed to like, I need it right now.
Yeah. That's
I
what you
needed
need to
it
do with the type
6 months
of cliffhanger
ago
like that.
whenever I finished reading the last one. Like,
Yeah, like this shouldn't have been the end. Like there was one more episode. Wonderful, good stuff.
no, I
Kieran
love
kills
it.
it. They all kill it. So
I,
like
I
it's a really fun series,
forever
and
indebted to
it's
them.
like I feel like it's a different type of comic in the sense where it's like definitely not your DC Marvel superhero stuff. Like it's a little more dense and a little bit more personal and a little bit more social in a way.
I love that it's both more dense and also a super easy read.
Yeah.
I don't know how it does it, but it does.
But yeah, exactly. It's weird, but it's just good storytelling at that point. Good setups. Solid
that's
first
just
act
like
carries you through.
all of them just knowing just being good at making comics.
Yeah, honestly. Well, I mean, speaking of good comics, we have a lot of cool stuff coming our way, and we're kind of changing some things up. We're like shuffling the deck a little bit. We will be back to some Miracle Man pretty soon. We'll be doing the issue by issue stuff. But that's not it. We have Black Hammer coming up by Jeff Lemire. We're really excited to dive into that. I have this dope library edition that's still in plastic that I'm going to unwrap and read. We're doing Akira because we did the Akira movie commentary, so we're gonna be diving into our first manga ever. We're gonna talk about volume 1 of Akira, which is a thick boy. I swear, it's not. It's just gonna take a minute, but we're gonna do it. Yeah, volume 1. We'll probably maybe do it a 2-parter, possibly. I don't know. It's a fast read, to be honest, too.
We'll see.
But also our overviews, we're gonna be doing more streamlined. We're trying to make these a bit more. I mean, we had a lot of updates. We didn't expect that to happen.
I mean, this is shorter than a normal episode, I think.
Yeah.
So.
But I also expect a lot of movie commentaries because we're tired and really busy.
Yeah,
so.
we're trying to do like those will be a consistent staple as well with the comic reviews.
Those are just really good on some weeks where I'm like, I'm sorry guys, we can't. It's that or nothing.
Yeah, that happens.
But stay tuned. Besides that, we have a lot of cool things going on. Check out our Instagram. Check out of course, check out our YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. And check out the source pages. I was just on their 100th episode with Ryan Doe's from Across the Bifrost. And it was just, we realized I think I was their most frequent guest ever for some reason. And somehow I wound up, I'm actually doing some Blue Beetle episodes with them too, apparently.
Nice.
So check those out as well. I guess I'm going to be on their show again. And stay tuned for a lot of updates on comics.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Alex, anything else?
No, just stay tuned for those episodes. Check out our Patreon again if you haven't. And I think that's it. I think you can roll it.
Thanks for hanging.
Hell yeah.